Hello and welcome to the Opening the Gates 2024 market update and Happy New Year to everyone watching. Thank you very much for returning in 2025 as I recap everything that went on in the market in 2024 and then the latest house price indexes that have come out. So I'm going to jump straight into it and go to my Open the Gates market update. So slightly different to usual because we're not comparing month by month or quarter by quarter. We're literally looking at 2024 compared to 23 and then the 5-year average, so 2023 to 2024. So just to run through this, on the market, i.e. number of properties for sale, there's a 12.69% increase on 2023 and 21% increase on the 5-year average. So there is definitely more choice available for buyers, as has been the common theme throughout the year. Therefore, sellers need to be more competitive on their pricing if they're going to attract the value conscious and price sensitive buyers in the market. Um, New listings up 9.5% on last year and 8.5% up on the 5-year average. So again, good news, confidence returned to the market, more sellers coming to the market, which is definitely a positive. Shows that there is definitely more confidence there, but there's not an influx of supply to the market that could dampen house prices. And as you can see, in terms of sales agreed numbers compared to last year at 17.5%, sales agreed has definitely exceeded new listings. So as interest rates have steadily come down over the years, over the year, that has meant that sales have increased and they are 0.96%, call it 1% up on the 5-year average. So let's just have a think about this. 2020, we had lockdown, but then we had the return of the market in the May and it went bonkers. 2021 was bonkers with a stamp duty holiday, record low interest rates. First half of 22 was bonkers, still with that race for space and low interest rates. And obviously, latter end of 22 and 23 was the Truss Kwarteng budget. So you've had some bits of close down in the market, some craziness in the market, and then arguably 2024 has been a very normal market, which I think you'll probably find me repeat later on in this recording as well. In terms of price changes, up 8% on last year and up a whopping 30% on the 5-year average. So overvaluing is definitely an issue in the marketplace, whether that be from sellers wanting too much money or estate agents overvaluing. Again, if you look at the average marketplace, agents are competing with a dozen other agents on average, according to Simon Ledbetter's Voice of the Agent survey. And the average consumer homeowner can name 3 estate agents. So you basically got a 25% chance of getting in the living room. Low stock, high competition is a big reason why I think estate agents are overvaluing to try and win the business. And then with the endowment effect, which I've probably discussed before, if you're not familiar with the endowment effect, reach out to me and I can explain that to you. Sellers are just always going to want more for their money. In terms of withdrawal numbers, that's up on last year by 3% and up 16% on the 5-year average. So there's definitely more property withdrawing from the market, which is a positive and a negative at the same time. I recorded a podcast, a Christmas special. Shout out to Chris Buckler for his Estate Agent Mastery podcast. Go check it out on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And the Christmas special was me basically rambling on for 5 to 10 minutes about withdrawn properties. Definitely go target withdrawn properties. These withdrawn properties, according to 20EA Inspector, around 46% of them will return to the market within a year. So definitely go target withdrawn properties. So Spectre, 20A, Home Search, Sprift, Propel. There's loads of great systems out there that can get you full addresses for withdrawn properties. And if you are not signed up to any of those platforms, if you want some free alternatives or cheaper ways to try and find withdrawn data, give me a shout and I'll very happily share some stuff with you there, along with some withdrawn content as well. Just on the withdrawn side of things, for anyone watching this who's been established for a while and has had properties withdraw from the market, please go back through your withdrawn listings and make sure that you target them because they will be coming back to market and you do not want them going on with someone else, obviously, unless they were a cheap fee, wanted too much money, and were a bit of a pain in the backside. But I've just released a podcast with Russell Quirk, my first of the year. And I think I said in that I had Power Report set up in my CRM, buyers of houses sell locally, lost market appraisals, and withdrawals. They were my Bible. Every day I'd be checking them, and the withdrawals with me or with other agents, I was massively going after. So definitely go after withdrawn properties. Onto fall throughs, 11.5% up on last year. Unsurprisingly, because there's been more sales agreed. More sales agreed equal more chance of fall throughs. And property taking longer to sell means they're more likely to fall through. Properties that reduce their asking price are more likely to fall through. Therefore, inevitably, there's going to be more fall throughs. It is only 1% up on the 5-year average, but still the amount of money that potentially could be costing. I have a podcast coming out soon with Brian Mansell from Gazelle. So shout out to Brian. Go and check out Gazelle. I would have mentioned it many times before on these recordings. But definitely go check out reservation agreements, particularly Brian, if you're not already doing them. There's definitely agents out there I work with who use reservation agreements, and their fall through rates are single digits. Average UK fall through rate in 2024 was about 25%. So, if you want to basically half your fall through rate, have a chat with me because there's definitely ways in which you can do that. In terms of relistings, 18.5% up on last year, 7% up on the 5-year average. So definitely properties returning to the market who've unsuccessfully marketed before. Goes back to my point around withdrawals. So people who've come off a market, re-entering the market. So definitely go after those. Of course, you want to be the first agent through the door. You want uncontested business, but there is definitely still a second-hand market out there, despite what you might read on socials. So I worked out recently that 13 million pounds worth of property that I sold in my last year as an agent, which believe it or not is 5 years ago now. That means that 13 million pounds worth of property that I sold in 2019 had failed to sell with someone else. So work out how much property you sold in 2024 that failed to sell with someone else. And maybe use that in your marketing. If I got slightly distracted as I was talking, my dog's decided to bark in the background, and I have no idea if those of you watching this will hear that. And I am very much a done beats perfect, and I hit record and just let it go. There's no second takes when it comes to this. Right, on to the next bit. Average asking price of new listings. So in 2023, across the year, it was 420 and a half, and it's just over 429 and a half in 2024. So a slight increase there in the market. We are talking a couple of percent there, aren't we? On that. So yeah, average asking price of new listings has gone up, as has the pounds per square foot. It's increased from 360 to 374 a square foot. But as we know, around 55% of properties last year actually went on to sell. And typically the ones at the lower end of the market will have a higher propensity to move or actually end up getting a sale. So it's very important to look at the sale agreed number. Bearing in mind, this sale agreed number is based on asking prices, and I'll be going through what Zoopla is saying the average agent is achieving as a percentage of asking price when I go onto the Zoopla house price index shortly. So on the sale agreed average asking price, it's gone up from 355 to 361 and a half. So some strong growth there in pricing, which is great to see, particularly after the slight decline in house prices in 2023 following the Truss Kwarteng budget. And then average pounds per square foot has gone up from 331 to 340. Now, if you're not already using pounds per square foot in your marketplace, I strongly recommend you do. We look at America and Australia as being like the goats of real estate. They are so in tune with pounds per square foot and utilizing it to get more realistic pricing on properties, getting buyers to negotiate up. So I would definitely recommend pounds per square foot. If you're struggling with pounds per square foot, give me a shout. Very happy to discuss that more. Right, on to the end of year house price index. Now, what I am going to do is just quickly go onto a different tab to explain all of these. But before I do that, some of these will vary because of the latest house price indexes that have come out. So some of these will be December's ones, some might be November, some might be October. I've basically taken the latest or last house price index I could see and gone through that. Now, some of these will be done slightly differently. So Rightmove, Zoopla, and Home.co.uk are all worked out on average asking price on new listings. Land Registry is looking at completed data from across the UK. Nationwide and Halifax are looking at their lending data, and then eServe is looking at completed data from England and Wales. So that's where you're going to get a discrepancy. Shout out to someone who actually asked me this on WhatsApp earlier today. What was the difference between all of these? You can actually go on to Land Registry and it will explain, sorry, Land Registry, the government website, and it will explain it. So the UK House Price Index gives you around 100,000 transactions a month, give or take. Covers all UK transactions. Now, because it covers Scotland and Northern Ireland, that is why, because their average prices are lower than England, Wales, that's why their price can be lower. Nationwide, Halifax have 12, 15,000 a month, and that's mortgage. LSL, ACA datasets, eServe have about 80,000, and it's England and Wales transactions, and that's on the registration of sale. So I must just sound Land Registry and eServe registration of sale. So, for example, if the data coming out now is October completions, that went sale agreed 4 months before that, probably went on the market 2 months before that. So, in hindsight, it's probably agreed in the spring. So, that is showing you past data. Asking prices from Rightmove and Zoopla and Home.co.uk are predicting what's happening going forward. And then you've got Nationwide and Halifax in the middle, which are providing data on kind of sell agreed sort of point of view. So you've got the start with Rightmove, Zoopla, Home.co.uk, the middle with Nationwide, Halifax, and then you've got eServe and the UK House Price Index at the end. So I hope that all makes sense there. On the right hand side, you've also got how they measure it. So you've got mixed adjustment or hedonic regression. If anyone wants to find out more about that, again, do give me a shout. So I'm just going to get rid of that tab now and go back here. So average asking price of Rightmove was 360,000. That was down 1.7% in December. Again, seasonal drop. And then the annual rise was 1.4%. Zoopla 0.11%, so static at 267.5 and up almost 2% on the year. Land Registry sits at 292 at 0.2%. So that's completed transactions and up 3.4% for the year. Nationwide up 1.2% and for the month and 3.7% for the year. Although since doing this data, a new nationwide house price index reporting on Q4 24 has come out. I believe it's higher than that. I think it's in the fours. So I'll come back to that. Halifax at 298, which is a 1.3% monthly rise and up almost 5% on the year. And then you've got eServe at 359, which is 0.2% up on the month and then 1.5% down on the year. And then home.co.uk asking price data up 355, which is minus 1% on the month. Again, seasonal data as you would expect, and up 1.7% annually. Couldn't get my words out there. So based on those indexes, so the kind of half a dozen most common, you got 314 as the average price. That's up 0.04% on the month and 2.2% on the year. So half a dozen we've looked at there. We've also looked at my data up here from 20 EA, and you will see that that's also gone up several £1,000s, which is probably about 2%. So in line with what we're seeing here. So give or take, had a couple of percent increase in the market in 2024. Certainly wouldn't have sniffed at that at the start of the year following the 2023 that we had. You will notice on this update, I haven't got anything on mortgage approval data or transaction data. That data has not, the latest data has not been released, so it wouldn't be any different to what I reported on at the back end of last year. However, when you look at mortgage and transaction data, it was definitely above pre-pandemic levels towards the end of the year. So again, as interest rates have steadily come down, confidence has returned to the market. We've definitely seen an increase in activity there. Just on that point, we are now going to go on to the UK House Price Index. I'm doing this in a slightly different order from usual, so slightly confused me there. So as I've already said, average house price UK from the government website. This was posted on the 18th of December, reporting on October. It's 292,000, up 3.4% on a year, 0.2% on the month. And then if I go through to the data here on the house price index, I've gone back to September 22 to where we are now in November 24. The reason I've done that is September 22 was the peak of the market at 288,465. It now sits at 292,059. So a few £1,000s and maybe 1 or so percent up on the peak of the market. Bearing in mind where interest rates have been for the last 2 years, that's a bloody good performance from the market. Now, on to the Rightmove House Price Index. Now, before I do that, actually, I'm going to talk about Boxing Day. So that's what I was referring to. So I'm just going to look at my other screen now. So Boxing Day listings, I had it as new listings on Boxing Day were 21% higher than last year. Number of reductions was up 21%. So there's definitely activity on Boxing Day. I'm not going to get into the whole Boxing Day saga right now. But some really interesting data that's come out of Rightmove, which, whether you believe in the Boxing Day vibe or not, there's some good data here. So this year, 2024, the Boxing Day bounce reached record-breaking levels, with 2024 marking the busiest Boxing Day ever for both new property listings and traffic to Rightmove, as home hunters and sellers began preparing for their 2025 moves. The Rightmove data shows a 26% increase in number of new properties listed for sale compared to Boxing Day 23. And then if I scroll down to here, inquiries sent to estate agents about homes for sale were 20% higher than Boxing Day 2023. Kind of would expect that if property instruction levels are up 26%, you would expect number of inquiries to go up. But that just goes to show that even with post budget, um, we have still got activity in the market. So it's looking very strong. What's quite interesting as well, if we just concentrate on this paragraph, is nearly half, 46% of homes coming on the market with second steppers. So that's 3 and 4 bedrooms. The way I read that is that's a real positive, because when interest rates shot up in 2022, it was that second stepper aspirational end of the market that really struggled with affordability constraints. So as interest rates have dropped, wages have gone up, and affordability has slightly improved, we're seeing those aspirational second steppers come back to market, which is really important for fluidity. And then the smaller homes, which are popular with first-time buyers, made up 35% of listings. Unsurprisingly, a third of sales are to first-time buyers. And then you've got the top of the ladder properties, again, perhaps those people downsizing, which I do expect there to be more of in 2025. Some really interesting data there. For any agents watching this, I would strongly recommend you get a blog out on this, do some video content, get it on socials, do some direct mail, emails out, WhatsApp broadcast list. There's so much you can do with this data here, for sure. Right. I should now go to Rightmove House Price Index. So, to basically run through this, I've got my notes down here. So, seasonal average, in line with the usual December drop, 1.7% down on asking prices. They're up 1.4% on 2023. It was slightly above the Rightmove prediction of 1%. And then their sales agreed December was tracking positively with a 22% increase. They're expecting a 4% rise in house prices in 2025, and buyer demand is also up 13%. So again, those Boxing Day stats, these stats are showing that buyer inquiries through Rightmove are definitely on the rise, which is positive. That is going to be because of slightly lower mortgage rates compared to a year ago, the stamp duty deadline, which is almost upon us. So you've got those bits to consider there. What I am now going to do is scroll down to affordability trends. So what I found quite interesting, I don't think I've really covered this before, because typically a 10% deposit is not your average kind of amount for a first time buyer, believe it or not, if you look at the stats, but let's just go with it. If you look at the average price, average amount that a first time buyer is spending on their mortgage compared to this time 3 years ago, it's astronomically higher, where it's gone from about 750 a month to, is that like 1200 a month? So quite a significant increase there. If my maths is okay, you're probably talking a 50-60% increase on the monthly mortgage repayment. Hence why, if there's more stock available, so more choice for buyers, and their money's not going as far, sellers need to be realistic and competitive on pricing. They really need to make sure their marketing stands out. Otherwise, they're going to be in that 45 to 50% who are not ending up selling uh, for that. So, what I also wanted to cover off was stock levels for agents. So, remain pretty consistent, although we have got a bit of a constipated pipeline at the moment, with more sales being agreed, sales taking longer, stamp duty deadline at the end of March. So, there's a bit more stock in the market than there was at this time last year. And there are more properties for sale as well. So it's gone up from 49 to 61. So actually, I hadn't worked this out, but let's quickly do it. The average agent has about 22% more properties on their books right now for sale or sold. So that is more work to be done. Average time to secure a buyer is 65 days, which is slightly down last year, but pretty much the same. So again, it's taken on average just over 2 months to find a buyer. And the latest property mark data is saying it's taking 17 weeks to get to exchange of contracts, which is just over 4 months, which is probably 130-ish days. And that would explain, give it a couple of weeks between exchange and completion, why Rightmove keep coming out and saying it's around 150-ish days to get to completion. So again, I know I've said it a lot before, but you're talking best part of 210, 215 days, and that's on the 55% of properties that do actually end up selling. So you're talking 7 months to get from listing to sale agreed. So if you're listing something at the start of January, you're not getting paid until July, August sort of time, August time, if my maths is right. So just thought I would share those bits there from Rightmove. Onto the Zoopla House Price Index. So strong end to the year, 1.9% increase in house prices, and they're projecting a 2.5% increase for 2025. They are also increasing transaction levels to go up 5% from 1.1 to 1.15. And I think in 2025, 2022, sorry, 2023, they're around the a million mark. So definitely increased transactions in the market, which is great. If you just look at a few bits here, there's definitely been a sustained recovery in sales numbers, but affordability pressures are still an issue because of higher house prices and higher interest rates. Buyers have definitely become more price sensitive. Their money's not going as far, therefore they're trying to chip the asking price. But as I said, they are predicting a continued recovery in sales volumes to 1.15 million in 2025 with modest house price inflation 2.5%. So long and short of it, again, any buyers who are waiting for house prices to drop or for interest rates to drop, again, doesn't look like we're going to be seeing much of that happening in 2025. So if people can make the move and want to make the move, they should just get on with doing it. So just continuing on these figures, 21% increase in buyer demand, 23% increase in sales agreed, new supply property at 18% and stock 10% higher. So some really healthy figures there. And again, a strong end to 2024. If I just scroll down, I've already said about pipelines being quite constipated. So they are a lot larger than they have been because things are just taking so long and there's more sales being agreed. And then house price inflation. So according to Zoopla, the average percentage of asking price discount is 3.6%. And that is a better percentage of asking price being achieved than the pre-pandemic 18-19 figure of 4% discount. And you can see that in the sort of pandemic sort of time when interest rates skyrocketed, it was at 4.6%. So there's definitely been a strong return to percentage of asking price being achieved there. It just goes to show, even with interest rates averaging late fours, early fives, there's still house price growth and there's still one-ish million transactions happening. It was when interest rates were having a six in front of them where we're perhaps seeing transactions below a million and house prices going the opposite way. So long and short of it, you should see north of a million transactions and house price growth with interest rates at 4 or 5%. Anything below 4%, I would perhaps assume that we're maybe going to get closer to 1.2, 1.25 million transactions, and maybe closer to 5% house price growth as well. As we saw in the COVID market, we had perhaps close to 1.5 million transactions, not quite, and almost 10% growth each year because we have record low interest rates. So you can kind of paint a picture of what interest rate brackets do for transaction levels and house price growth. As I've already said, buyers became more price sensitive in the final quarter of last year. They say buyers markets returned over late 22 and 23. I don't buy into this whole buyers sellers market kind of thing. I think we're at a very, very balanced market at the moment, actually, that doesn't necessarily favor either side on that. But there's a lot of stuff in here around price sensitivity. I know I've already said it, but sellers need to price competitively. They've got more competition. Buyers have got more choice. They need to stand out in the market. And that's where you can prove your worth as an agent to win more business and get the fees you deserve as well. North-South divide. I mean, yeah, I've spoken about this before. In more recent times, London and the Southeast with higher interest rates will not progress as far with house price growth and transaction numbers compared to the more affordable areas of Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. But over the years, when you've had lower interest rates, as you can see, London and the South of England are ones that do the best with house price growth, followed by Midlands, the North, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. So the outlook for 2025, um, as I think makes a lot of sense. It will be dictated by the strength of the economy and the labour market that Zoopla say, and then the trajectory for mortgage rates as well. They believe that mortgage rates are set to remain at current levels, and buyers are likely to remain price sensitive. So again, those sellers who are too optimistic with their pricing will be price reducing. So I think we will continue to see a lot of price reductions. Um, in 2025. There certainly wasn't a slowdown of it on Boxing Day. So, of the new alerts that went out on Rightmove, around 44% of those alerts were price reductions, almost half, which is crazy. Um, However, the desire to move does remain there, even with the political economic turmoil we've faced in recent years by different circumstances. And Zoopla are predicting 1.15 million transactions to take place. If you want to figure out what that means for your particular area, again, give me a shout and we can work out roughly what sort of transaction numbers we're looking at. And we can figure out, well, what percentage of that market do you need to sell to achieve the revenue and profit you want? And then we can back date that, reverse engineer. It's probably a better language to understand how many instructions you need, how many valuations, then how much do you need to invest in your marketing. So that is Zoopla. On to Nationwide. So this is what I said about the December one coming out. So a 4.7% rise rather than the 3.7 I reported earlier for the year and 0.7 on the monthly. Um, Northern Ireland, best performing area for second year running, and then the northern regions seeing higher price growth than the southern regions. Again, that goes back to my point around affordability. And then something else that they report on, which I think is down here. So, for example, a typical mortgage rate for someone with a 25% deposit hovered around 4.5% for much of the year, three times the 1.5%, which was in late 2021. So, you got almost 3% higher interest rates compared to 3 years ago. So, something really to consider there again from an affordability point of view. I think that there again was something around mortgage approval levels. Um, I've already reported on it, but mortgage approvals basically, there we go, rising above pre-pandemic levels towards the end of the year. So hopefully we'll see that continue as we go into 2025. And then I've already reported on this in the last update I did, but you can see here the transaction volumes. There's always peaks when you get to stamp duty. The first quarter of a year is going to be pretty crazy, put it that way. This map here, love the look of it being so blue. Um, Basically means there's growth in the market. To not see any red on that is brilliant. So it shows we're definitely moving in the right direction. What's interesting here, property type review. So terrace properties had the biggest increase in price. I would say that's down to probably a lot of first-time buyers are buying terrace properties, and they're the biggest buyer group. So that's probably going to increase demand, and then probably those first time buyers who can't quite afford to buy a house are going to buy a flat. So flats have certainly had a resurgence and a recovery in their house price growth. Nationwide have said here recorded their best year since 2021. In the long term, Nationwide report that detached properties always do the best. So since Q1 2020, so what's that, 5 years ago, detached houses have gone up about 27%, whereas flats have only risen about 15%. So almost double the growth there in the detached market. Final thing on this, well, you can see from Nationwide here, they've reported that the average price now sits at 269.5, not a million miles away from the peak of the summer autumn 2022. And then the other thing I wanted to report on was house price earning ratio. So whilst we still have affordability constraints, wage growth has certainly helped. Lower interest rates has helped. So you can see that that house price earning ratio has come down from where it was a couple of years ago, but it's still significantly higher than the long run average of the past 30 years or so. You've then got some more data through here, quarterly data on different areas, but I won't go through that. eServe, I think short and sweet on this, they have reported house price growth 2 months in a row, activity at its highest for 2 years. Although we must not forget there are increased mortgage costs coming for a lot of borrowers. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was in here somewhere around just here we go. So the banks suggest some 4.4 million borrowers, 50% of those mortgages, will face increased costs when they remortgage between now and the end of 2027. So in the next 3 years, 50% of people will see a rise in their mortgages who are coming off of fixed rates. So again, perhaps those people looking to upsize might not do so because of higher mortgage payments, but there might actually be people who decide to downsize. So it's again finding that market, making that market. There is always a market out there to be had. It's just figuring out which market you want to go after. Again, I can look at things like most transient places in your area, seller, buyer, demand types, and what perhaps sort of market you should be targeting right now. So again, please do feel free to reach out to me on that. Last bit on eServe that I wanted to run through was these two last paragraphs. So for the next few months, house price movements will continue to be in a positive direction for the reasons that they've discussed above, albeit possibly tempered by the seasonal slowdown in activity. So looking further ahead, some uncertainty as to how quickly and far interest rates will decline through 2025, alongside the scheduled return of higher stamp duty payments in England from next April, suggests that stellar increase in house prices are not on the cards. So long and short of it, they're saying, sure, we might have a little bit of growth in 2025. We might have a little bit of increase in transaction levels. But for anyone who is anticipating a significant rise in transaction numbers or a significant reduction in interest rates, no one seems to be predicting it out there. They just seem to be predicting a very steady market. So on to home.co.uk. So again, unsold sales stock count has plummeted. Seasonal thing, but again, more withdrawals. I've already spoken about withdrawals on this recording. Definitely something to consider going after at the start of 2025. Asking prices have seen a seasonal decline, unsurprisingly, and they're up 1.7% on the year. They do report that activity continues to indicate significant momentum. Property turnover continues to be higher than during most of the last 10 years, which is brilliant considering what the average interest rate has been over the last decade. And then typical time on market remains significantly lower than the pre-pandemic norm of December 2019. So if we're taking away the COVID craziness of the last 5 years, it's almost coming up to, we are in a pretty normal market. However, I would have reported before, as much as I thought a normal market was a good thing, sometimes just normal doesn't cut it. People need a deadline, which is why the stamp duty changes is going to mark a significant increase in transaction levels for Q1. It might also signify an increase in demand for people who try to beat it, who won't quite get there. And then any base rate drops or slight interest rate reductions we have this year, we need to be really reporting on that positive, as now is the time to get in the market before everyone else does. So you've got to try and drive up that momentum, not artificially, but just get those people from off the fence into the marketplace. Uh, Total number of new instructions entering the market was up 10%, which is positive to see. And then the other bits I wanted to run through were, I think we've got a bit here. So whilst the expectation of lower interest rates going forward have buoyed confidence in the market, fears of increased taxation, restrictive legislation persist, especially among landlords. Consequently, they expect landlords to continue to offload their least profitable properties, therefore adding to sales supplied by reduction in rental property availability. So we've already reported on this. Yeah, between 10 and 20% of properties currently on the market are ex-landlord properties. If you want to find out that stat for your local area, reach out to me. But some of these properties are being bought up by landlords as well. So if you aren't already offering a service to offload properties for landlords, do it. If you're not offering a service to help landlords buy a next property, their investment property, do it, because there are still landlords investing in the market, believe it or not. So that's just something to consider there. We should see a seasonal uptick in the market in January. Typically, you see that in house prices and activity. Zoopla, I think, reported in 2024. January is the busiest month of the year for traffic to their website, and Rightmove is saying February and March are the best time to put your house on the market. So I really would be pushing out there to there is definitely demand out there. Let's beat the spring market and get your house on the market now before all the competition do on that. Um, in terms of the other bits I wanted to run over, I've already spoken about market turnover. That's in a positive way. And then if we look at the stock levels, again, for there to be a significant oversupply, which is higher than demand, which would make house prices go down, this bar here that I'm hovering over would need to continue rising up, but as it does every December, as you can see, it drops off. And whilst we're kind of at a 10-ish year high for stock levels, they're still not far exceeding where they have been over the last decade and where they were 15 years ago at the height of the recession. So again, we've got a very balanced market between buyers and sellers. Um, in terms of the last bit, I want to discuss. I think it was just this bit. Um, so there are going to be some mortgagees and landlords who are going to be in a spot of bother in 2025, but it's going to be uh, I don't think as high as people anticipate because we've got some really good equity in this country. But if we just look at the left-hand side, over a third of mortgage borrowers have so far avoided the impact of rising interest rates by locking into fixed deals prior to the rates hiking in late 2021. And as I said earlier, there's about 4.4 million households that are expected to encounter higher mortgage costs. And around 420,000, so that's 10% of them, could see their monthly mortgage payment rise by £500. So really important stuff to know in terms of what could hold people back from moving, but then also explaining this to sellers who maybe get a little bit too greedy or optimistic in their asking prices as well. And then I've already reported this, but monthly change seasonally down 1%. Annually up 1.7%. Again, that's on asking price data. And then on the last couple of bits, so from Property Mark, I think it was page 5 I wanted to go to. So sales volumes increase, prospective buyer registrations nudge further upward, which is positive signs. And if we go to page 8, I think it was, new supply climbs, so more properties entering the market, which is a positive. Stock levels have edged upwards, market appraisals on the up, which again is positive. Um, Number of properties achieving asking price sees a slight dip. So on that, if I read this right, 80% of properties sell for below the asking price. So for any agents watching this, try and work out in 2024 what percentage of properties did you sell at or above the asking price? Because if you're selling more than 20%, if I can read that right, if you're selling more than 20% of what you list at or above the asking price, you're definitely doing something amazing. So imagine it's 40%, you can say you're twice as likely to sell it at or above the asking price compared to the average agent. Definitely something to think about there. And I've already touched on this, but time taken to exchange contracts has seen overall upward trend at 17 weeks as an average. If you haven't already spoken to Ross McKenzie and OpenMove, I strongly recommend you do so. It's got a fantastic piece of tech there to try and combat the issues that are hampering pipelines. I don't know if I would have said this in my last recording, but when I was an agent, you would exchange your pipeline, what, 30-ish% a month. So you call it once a quarter, so 4 times a year. Whereas I've got agents saying to do it 2.5, 3 times a year is like the norm now. That's just insane. And there's definitely ways that can be sped up. So do check out Ross and OpenMove. There's definitely ways in which you can also improve it in the meantime. I've got some agents I've worked with who have confirmed that they are getting their sale agreed to completion through several weeks quicker because of stuff they're doing before the seller even instructs them. So get in touch with me if you want to find out more about that. And then last but not least, the RICS survey. So I'll keep this short and sweet. So measure of buyer demand remains positive with house price growth appearing to gain traction. So new buyer inquiry data again points to a slight pickup in demand. Sales appear to have leveled off over the month. National house price indicator continues to move higher, which is positive, and a near-term outlook for activity moderately positive despite the recent rise in mortgage rates. So on that point now, I'm just going to look at my other screen to look at the latest details from Rightmove on mortgage rates. So the average 2-year fixed rate is currently sitting at 5.06%, which is down 0.01% on the week, and it's 0.35% higher than a year ago. 5-year fixed rate is still slightly lower than a 2-year at 4.8%, and that's minus 0.01% on a week ago, and it's 0.2% down on a year ago. In terms of the lowest 2 and 5-year fixed rate, the 2-year fix is at 4.21%, and that is the same as a week ago, down 0.38% on a year ago, and the 5-year fix is currently sitting at 4.07%, level with a week ago, and 0.16% down on a year ago. So interest rates have come down steadily on a year ago. They are still significantly higher than 2 to 3 years ago. Well, 3 years ago now. But yeah, if we just recap everything I've gone through, sorry, it was a bit all over the place. But essentially, there is supply in the market, there is demand in the market, there is definitely a market to be had. There are going to be higher transaction levels. There are going to be slightly higher house prices in 2025. And it's definitely a positive market for those agents who've been putting in all the groundwork in 2024. I hope you've enjoyed my first update of a year. I will be back in early February to report on January, so the first month of 2025, and seeing how the market has reacted post Christmas hangover and New Year's resolution. So we will see in early February. Before you go, if you could please go to Google and do me a small favor and just leave me a review, I would really appreciate it. And whilst you're still here on YouTube, give it a subscribe, give it a follow, trying to get to over 100 subscribers. And make sure you share this with anyone else within the estate agency industry that you think would benefit from watching it. And any feedback you'd like to give me, please do as well. That just leaves me to say thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you again at the start of February. Bye for now.